So I want to clarify for Boddhi's owner exactly what I'm referring to when I'm talking about littermate syndrome, because I've been dealing with it. It's the primary issue that I've been dealing with Boddhi and his brother Kuma since they came in. So Deborah, I'll address you directly, but I'm going to probably put this on YouTube, for my vast YouTube audience, make it educational. Because it's a very interesting case study. So Boddhi and Kuma are littermates. Boddhi's kind of sickly. He's got like kind of a weird bone structure, so he's like a little bit hobbled. Part of it's his Dachshund, they got an odd shape to them, especially the little ones. But he's the weaker of the two dogs. Kuma is his brother. Kuma is, a bigger, stronger, healthier dog, and traditionally he took a leadership role between the two, and they've been together, as far as I understand, their entire lives. So typically, the way that littermate syndrome gets expressed, the way that I've seen it, is they start snarking at each other. They start competing, because those two dogs have been competing over the mother's teat since they were, since they were born. And it's dogs like puppies, they bite each other. No, place, Nico. She is so fucking snotty. Don't you know with me anymore? No, Nico, place. You're ruining my video. Good girl. You don't have any excuse. You don't have littermate syndrome. Anyway, before I was rudely interrupted, typically what you see is a competitive drive between the two dogs, and it ends up manifesting itself through aggression. Not so with these guys. They're the other most common thing, which is separation anxiety. So typically what you'll see is you'll have these two puppies, these two young dogs that have been together since birth, and they're so closely bonded. It's almost like a form of imprinting, right? Where they're just hyper attached to each other. They can't really form proper attachments with other dogs or people, and they develop severe separation anxiety when separated. Now, Deborah, I'm not sure I'm almost positive you weren't aware of this. It's fine, because you can deal with it. As long as you're aware of it, dealing with it isn't super hard. I mean, I had the hard job, and I'll explain why in a second. But it requires the owner has to be cognizant of it. If you have the type of littermate syndrome where they develop separation anxiety, when there's aggression involved, it's best to separate them. This is a more manageable type of situation. So let me explain. It was very unusual the way it manifested itself. Obstinacy is a breed characteristic of Dachshunds. They're just stubborn. They're like, nah, fuck you. They're kind of snotty, if you tell them to do something. And these guys, especially him, he's pretty smart. He knew what to do very early on, and he just chose not to. Like Nico. No, Nico, place. Good girl. By the way, talk about stubborn. Oh, this one. Best dog I've ever known, but just like a mule. Anyway, he was a mule. And he was just he would look me dead in the eye like this. I'd tell him sit. He knew what sit was. He'd be like, go fuck yourself. Dead in the eye, square in the eye. And I was like, oh, this little son of a bitch. So initially, I just interpreted as solely willfulness. I used a little bit of food with him too in the beginning, because they were tough to motivate and they were just kind of spacey. So I tried to form some engagement with him through food, which generally I don't do, but with teeny tiny dogs, sometimes I'll use it a little bit, for like a day or two. Anyway, that was a huge mistake, because it really did. I'm convinced it devalued me in his eyes. And then he was just like, he looked at me, he would be like, you ready to give a correction and or give a treat? And if the answer was no, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't sit, he wouldn't down, whatever. So I interpreted that exclusively as all right, he's probably a little spoiled, and he's being stubborn. it wasn't just that. It was, he has a reduced capacity, him and his brother, to pick up on social cues from other dogs and from other people. Now, they're very affectionate dogs, right? But what they'll do is they kind of like you on their own terms. So he'll come up to me and he'll go, like, I might, you know, I've been working on it with him. Yeah, see? Just like that. Easy. I won't give it to him because he's like demanding affection, attention. It's on his own terms. He likes me like he likes ice cream. So they have an impaired ability to really form proper relationships with, you know, not just people but other dogs, and relate to them properly. And I don't think they could really read me. They understood, but they're just unwilling to take direction from a human being because they're just in their own fucking world together. It was bizarre, and it was very frustrating. And then I finally came to the conclusion that's what it was. It's basically like a communication failure. And that's not the only thing. Part of it was, like I said, no offense, Deborah, they were probably a little spoiled, which most people do it with their dogs. So there's a little bit of snottiness there. Whatever, not a big deal. I mean, it's way worse. And there was a little bit of just like, it's part of the breed. It's a stubborn breed, you know? But I think a huge part of it was just like, they just don't, they're not that into you. There was a lack of engagement from the beginning, and that's why. Now here's the really interesting part. Boddhi has flourished since I worked hard on separating them gradually, and they've barely been interacting. I'm trying to, this is taking a little bit of extra time here, which I did not anticipate. I'm trying to reintegrate them gradually, and things keep getting fucked up when I do that. But he's doing well when he's on his own. He's a lot more confident, and he's way more compliant, and he's cool with it now. He's like, all right, I get it. He let go. Kuma's like, if he can't take like a minor correction, easy, on my terms. He can't do. He'll like yelp over like a teeny. As you go, boy, over like a teeny tiny correction, like ah! And it's because he doesn't have that comfort zone in this guy. And the interesting part of that was he was the leader, so his whole identity was staked in being around this one. So now there's obvious separation anxiety, but also like he's kind of used to. I hate to sound like Caesar Milan. Being the pack leader, you know, like being the one who was making all the decisions for the group, and it was an army of two, you know, and it's just totally foreign. Now he's like turned inside out. I mean, he's not that bad. I don't want to give you the impression, Deborah, like he's like, oh, you know, but I notice it because I'm training them, and it's crazy. It's like, what the fuck? Is in the beginning he was easy, he was great until I separated them, and it helped him tremendously, and it's Kuma it's messing up. So again, I just got to spend more time on Kuma, get him built up, and then we got to come up with a plan on reintegrating them, which can be tricky because when I've tried it a few times now, and they just get lost in their own world again, and they become non-compliant. It is stubbornness, but they're just kind of tuned out in their own world. It's kind of creepy. It's like creepy twins, you know. So it's a very interesting case study. And I could very well be misinterpreting what's going on. Because, as I always say, you know, God knows what's going on inside the mind of a dog. But there's definitely dysfunction there. And you totally notice it training them. So I don't know. I thought it was an incredibly interesting case study. But be very aware, you know, if you're going to get a dog, it's best not to get two dogs from the same litter, obviously. And if you've done that, fine, you know, live with it. I would say the aggression thing, separate them immediately. If you're dealing with a situation like this, be aware of it. And you have to give each dog their individual identity. So you can't walk them together all the time. You can't, I would put their crates in separate rooms, especially in the beginning. Maybe later they could be in the same room, but like on different sides of it. You know, if they're sharing a crate, that's terrible. It's really bad for them. And just think of it as like, you know, like two twins who are just fucking weirdos and they never develop their own identity, you know? That's kind of what happens with this kind of littermate syndrome. So think of it in those terms, and that's been my experience with them. So I'm going to clarify for their owner exactly, you know, what I've been referring to, what I've been talking about littermate syndrome in detail, really just kind of expound upon my experience with them so far. Very, very interesting. Especially because he's so unanticipated. He would be the one who came around, you know. But Kuma, he'll be fine. I mean, they'll both be fine. But again, when they go back, you don't have to deprive them of each other totally. Like they're buddies. That's cool. But it's got to be a healthy relationship. And codependency, you got to actively fight against it. Okay. Otherwise, because what you'll get is, you'll get not just separation anxiety, but you'll get all kinds of unintended consequences from littermate syndrome. And the non-compliance, where they're just like, yeah, whatever, not dialed into you, that's the one I notice the most as their trainer. It's a complete lack of engagement. Now, you'll get affection out of them, certainly, but it's going to be on their own terms, and it's not going to be like affection toward like a leader, you know, like where they're like, geez, I really respect you and love you, Dad or Mom. Like, you know, it's going to be like, you know, I love ice cream. Give me some more of that ice cream. And that's a very unhealthy dynamic. So be aware of it. And it's a very, very interesting thing, you know. I've come across it a couple of times, and this is the most extreme case I've run into. So anyway, that's it. They're doing okay, though, especially this one. They'll be fine. Nothing too crazy, but very, very interesting case study.